Hi everyone. This is the third video about quick forms. If you haven't seen the previous two, stop and go watch it. The links will be at the bottom. So where did we stop there? What we've settled on is that we have links that open a form with specific parameters. For example, here I have the guitar I want to choose. And here we immediately encounter such a story that I would like that if a person deleted these parameters from the address bar from here. Here I have selected the default guitar, so that the form would be inaccessible to him. So always, if there are parameters, then yes, okay, he can see the form. If there are no parameters, then he can't see the form. How to do it? We go to the table from which the form is actually made. We go to Forms, we say, Configure Form. There is a parameter here that the form is available only with parameters. And now, when he tries to go to it without parameters or with the wrong parameter. Let's try, we'll close this. We'll go back to the stock. So just like that, for example, we'll take and edit some parameters here. It's going to be inaccessible. These parameters are encrypted. They are encrypted together with the salt, and it is encrypted in them. What is the table? What is the form? So that it is impossible to take on another project, make a similar form with parameters, and from there take this hash with parameters, and thus bypass this restriction. Okay, let's go back to our table, with which we will do this. I've improved it a little bit here, and I've got the statuses here. I've shown you. I'm counting here the date of readiness, so this is the current day plus 10. And I would like that when a person clicks on Save, the form would not just say something generic like, but it would take into account this calculated date. That is, I would find out the ID number of the row that was added, take the date from it, and output some form data based on that. How to do this? Here in the formula settings we have HTML when the form is saved. And we can set not HTML, but this totem code when saving. It should return link to data text here. Link to data HTML, or it can do link to script. We're going to look at this next, while I do link to data text. And here we're going to insert your order has been added in the header. And in the text, we'll do the following thing. We're going to gather the text and say the delivery date is and add some value. Double plus means there's going to be a space there. And they're not one-to-one glued together. And there's going to be a date here. We're going to do a date format so that we can output it in a human-readable format. This is where we're going to take select. What are we going to take in select? We say that select from the table gets orders, from the field with the date ready, where the id, and here we need to specify the id of this new row to be added. And here, in this code, we can get it by the row ID quick variable. And notice that the I here is large. Okay, let's save it. This we can close this. Let's open our form. It's now not working without parameters. Okay, duplicate tab. Let's go this way. We're gonna buy pink. Okay, now it works with parameters. That's it. This is where I say my name is Alex. Well, it's being delivered somewhere. And now we see not only that it is okay, but we see the information calculated for us. And now we're going to look at the development of this story. Because I don't just want to give it some kind of a ready date. This is a test case. I want him to pay me immediately for this order. And then I would further consider only those orders that are paid. That's how I did it in this test case. This is close, refresh. Here it is, by the way, our added, new order. I've added some fields here related to the payment system that I'm working with. The way it works is that we have an order, when we have placed it, we send the amount to the payment server. Then we get back from the payment server the payment ID and the URL to which we have to send the person who will have this form with the credit card input. Then we send the customer to that URL and they see the payment form there. And usually the payments have, when he has paid, there is a return hook. And we can receive it. But this is an unreliable story. because this hook can be tampered with, intercepted. So by this ID, you yourself after some time ask about the status of this payment directly from the server of the payment system and you get an answer. And now let's look at how these steps are realized here in Totem. First, we need to send a request. I do it through this payment data field. What am I doing here? I'm going to do the code here on add. So here it is. The action code that's executed on add, that the third-party server response inserts into this same field. The response from the third-party server we get JSON, but here the field is data type, so I do JSON extract. That is, I parse the text as JSON that came to us and turn it into data in Totem and put it into this field. How do we get the response? We make a request to a third-party API payment server, where this is the part that relates to that request. And there will be a separate video about the getFromScript function, where we will discuss how it is organized and how it relates to what you see in the documentation of payment systems or other API services. Because someone can make requests to any API that works with POST or GET parameters, and there will be a separate story about that. Well, here I pass the store ID, the store key with a certain kind of header. Here this payment system pass them a random number. And here I pass as amount the amount it will pay and confirmation. Information URL is the URL that the buyer will return to after making the payment, if he wants to. Once again, let me remind you that I do it with the action code when adding. You can't put this code exactly in the code, even if you set it to execute only on add. Because the code in the add line, and the form is an add line, will be executed every time you change something in the form. And the request to the remote server of the system is executed once. They won't understand if you spam them with dozens of requests for the same amount. Okay, when we got that answer, I've got two more technical fields here. Well, understandably, these are fields that are only visible to the creator. The form doesn't see them. And I'm pulling out the two most important ones. We get this structure as an answer. I get the payment ID. Here it is. And this is the simplest code that takes the ID key from payment data. And I get the redirect URL. Here it is. We can manually go there and we'll see the payment form there. But we're not going to do that right now, because we need the form to go to this redirect URL. And let's do that in our form code. We go to the form settings, configure the form, and we're going to refine this code. First, we need not link to data text, but link to script, which will actually send us to this URL. We will say here that this is select. And we don't pass any additional parameters there. And we need to say that we will pass in the same table, that is self. And we don't need these parameters. We don't need this. Here we get select. And here we need not the end date, but we need to get the redirect URL. Okay, let's try now how this will work. Bookmark. We're going to buy a pink guitar. Name Alex. Here's an asterisk. Save. And here we go to the payment form. Here I have the amount converted to my local currency. There is a test card, which is always used to pay for everything. A person enters the parameters of the card. Here the payment went through. If he clicks back to store, it will go back to the set by back redirect page. It could also be another form, and you can generate a link for him, and to get him back to the form, you can take there, for example, say your order specifically so and so was paid. Everything's kind of cool. Here's our added order. Here we have the status in progress. I've made a check button here that also goes to the API server and asks what our payment status is. So that we don't have to manually click it, I put right here in cron settings. Once every 5 minutes to press these buttons, but no more than 10, so as not to spam the server of the payment system. This is how such solutions are made. Here we, respectively, see that everything, we have something paid, and then we can work with those that are paid, and we can add pre-filter. Look at the section on prefilters, so that the unnecessary orders that have not reached the payment, so that they are not shown in the main table. That's all. It was long enough. Enjoy your use. If there are any clarifications, write on the forum. And bye-bye.